Imagine hundreds of teenagers suddenly flooding a city street, organized entirely through secret social media posts, leaving police and parents completely in the dark.
Yeah, it is honestly a public safety nightmare.
It really is.
Yeah.
Welcome to today's Deep Dive, everyone. We are unpacking a phenomenon that is just overwhelming cities across the country right now, which people are calling the teen takeover.
Right, and we are looking at some really intense source material today to figure out how these viral events actually work.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of what is happening on the ground. In Chicago's Loop, a massive crowd of youth recently swarmed the downtown area, smashed car windshields, and sparked street brawls.
And it got so bad, it forced the city to lock down with a strict 10 p.m. curfew.
Exactly. And down in Jacksonville, Florida, police found themselves scrambling to break up gatherings of roughly 600 to 700 teenagers at a local spot called Friendship Fountain.
Wow, 700 kids.
Yeah.
And the situation escalated rapidly nearby when gunfire actually injured 4 people at a massive beach takeover.
That is just terrifying. And this isn't just happening in one region. Up in Washington, D.C., right in the highly gentrified Navy Yard district, hundreds of teens swamped the neighborhood.
Yeah, and local lawmakers had to pass emergency laws just to regain control of the streets.
So our mission today is to pull apart the anatomy of these events. We will examine how police use psychological tricks to calm chaotic crowds, why politicians are clashing over how to fix the problem, and why the law is increasingly deciding to punish the parents instead of the kids.
It is a lot to cover, but it is so important to understand.
Glad you are here with us as we unpack all of this. So to start off, what exactly is a teen takeover? I mean, how does the internet even make this possible?
Well, these are massive, really loosely organized gatherings, and they get promoted on apps like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok.
So it is just a digital word of mouth.
Right, exactly. But there are no permits filed with the city, there are 0 security plans, and crucially, there are absolutely no adults in charge.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. It kind of sounds like those flash mobs we used to see back in the 2010s, right?
Sort of, but those older events, even when they were spontaneous, usually had a central organizer or a specific goal.
And these are just totally random.
Yeah, today's takeovers have 0 structural hierarchy. Word spreads so fast that you draw massive crowds to places like the Avenues Mall in Jacksonville in just a matter of hours.
Yeah, and while I am sure a lot of teens just want to hang out on a Friday night, when you put 700 unsupervised kids in a confined space, the massive crowd size creates its own volatile gravity.
Exactly. Minor disputes turn into massive brawls, property gets destroyed, and in the worst cases, like we saw in Chicago and the Jacksonville beach people start pulling handguns.
But wait, if they organize these events publicly on social media, why do police always seem to be playing catch-up? It is baffling that billion-dollar police departments are caught off guard.
What is fascinating here is the speed of digital communication versus the slow institutional response. It comes down to a structural mismatch. Well, an algorithm on a platform like TikTok optimizes strictly for hyperlocal engagement. It does not recognize city limits or police jurisdictions.
Oh, right. It just blasts the flyer to everyone nearby.
Exactly. It forcefully pushes the idea to thousands of teenagers within a 20-mile radius in a matter of minutes.
Meanwhile, law enforcement operates on a much slower intelligence model.
Right. They rely on formal permit applications or intercepting known criminal chatter. But an algorithm doesn't file a permit. The idea moves from a single text to a physical crowd of 700 people before authorities even know what is happening.
So because police fail to catch these digital waves before they crest, they end up managing a crisis that is already in progress on the street.
Exactly. Since they cannot stop the crowds from forming, they have to manage hundreds of hyped-up teens without starting a full-blown riot.
Which brings us to the police playbook. How do they actually do that?
Well, the tactics are highly counterintuitive. The Bureau of Justice Assistance actually advises against using heavy riot gear.
Wait, really? No riot gear? I feel like if a precinct is watching kids smash cars, the immediate instinct is to send in officers with helmets and shields.
Visually, that might look like control, but psychologically, it is like pouring gasoline on a fire. Deploying officers in heavy gear can actually provoke the crowd.
Because it signals that they are in a war zone.
Exactly. It triggers a defensive and often violent response. So instead, police deploy mobile response teams on bicycles and dual sport motorcycles.
Using a bicycle against a massive crowd seems incredibly fragile, almost like sending officers out totally unprotected.
It sounds fragile, but it helps them move quickly. A traditional squad car gets boxed in immediately by a dense crowd.
Oh, that makes sense. A car becomes a trap.
Right. Bicycles allow officers to maneuver rapidly. Plus, a line of bikes acts as an immediate, mobile, physical barrier. They also put commanders directly in the field to make fast decisions.
Okay, that makes sense physically. But what about psychologically? How do you de-escalate a teenager who is completely panicked?
Well, when youth in these crowds are escalating, their heart rate spikes and adrenaline floods their system. This literally causes a drop in oxygen flow to the frontal lobe.
The part of the brain responsible for logic. So they literally cannot think straight.
Right. They experience auditory exclusion. So strategies require interventions to be simple and clear. Officers are trained to use 5 words or fewer.
5 words or fewer. Something as blunt as, put the chair down now.
Yes. And they give exactly 2 acceptable choices to help the teen regain a sense of control.
But the most critical tactic involves how they frame the command.
Yeah. Exactly. Police are taught to tell escalating teens what to do rather than what not to do.
Because a panicked brain running on adrenaline struggles to process the word don't.
Precisely. If an officer yells, "Don't run," the panicked brain often just registers the action word run. By shifting the command to stand still, the officer provides a direct executable action.
I mean, telling an angry teenager what to do instead of what not to do sounds great in a quiet classroom. But does it actually work in a chaotic street takeover?
It does, because energy is contagious. This connects the psychology of one teenager to the macro behavior of a crowd.
So if a cop freaks out, the crowd freaks out.
Exactly. If an officer loses self-control or reacts with anger, it triggers the crowd to escalate further. But a calm, authoritative voice invites the crowd to calm down.
It is essentially psychological judo, but not everyone agrees that a non-confrontational approach is the right move, do they?
No, absolutely not. There is a fierce political debate over how cities should respond to the damage these crowds cause.
Right. It is like a pendulum swinging wildly between 2 extremes.
Yeah, and the viewpoints couldn't be further apart. On one side, progressive leaders like Chicago Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson call for creating safe, supervised spaces for youth.
And juvenile justice advocates agree. They argue the media sensationalizes these events, claiming that heavy-handed policing unfairly criminalizes low-income children of color who are simply gathering to socialize.
Exactly. But then on the other side, conservative politicians like Florida gubernatorial candidate James Fishbach are calling these events straight-up riots.
Yeah, Fishbach points out the racial demographics of the crowds, and he cites a statistic that 72% of black children are born to unmarried mothers.
Right, and he proposes charging participating teens as adults with a 3-year statute of limitations.
Which is an incredibly harsh penalty. Meanwhile, a SAFE task force in Memphis boasts a 43% drop in crime through stricter enforcement.
It really raises an important question, though, about the tension between protecting constitutional First Amendment rights to assemble and the government's duty to protect local economies and public safety.
Exactly. And we are just laying out the source material here to show how deep this divide goes. We are definitely not taking sides, but it is clear politicians are clashing over the solution.
Yeah, and because prosecuting hundreds of minors all at once is incredibly difficult, lawmakers are utilizing a completely new legal strategy.
Right, shifting the blame. They are targeting the parents.
It is a massive shift. In Washington, D.C., federal prosecutors are bypassing limits on juvenile charges by criminally charging the adults.
Like criminally charging them for what?
For contributing to the delinquency of a minor if they permit their kids to participate.
Oh, wow. And in California, the financial penalties are staggering. Parental liability laws mean parents face severe consequences.
Well, right. They can be slapped with up to $25,000 in civil liability for property damage caused by their teens.
25 grand. That is life-changing money. And they face criminal charges for failing to control a minor or failing to secure firearms.
Exactly. It is a very aggressive approach.
But here is where it gets really interesting to me. How can a court fine a parent $25,000 if they honestly believe their kid was just at the movies?
Well, it comes down to the legal duty of care. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the law is increasingly expecting parents to monitor their teens' social media.
So they have to catch the problem before it happens. Ignorance is not an excuse anymore.
Right. Ignorance of a child's whereabouts is no longer a guaranteed legal shield. The expectation is that you have an active duty to intervene before harm occurs.
I mean, if a single parent is working a night shift, how are they supposed to beat a billion-dollar algorithm? That is an incredibly heavy burden.
It really is, and it is driving immense frustration within communities. But while politicians debate curfews and courts hand out fines, some community members realize that to fight a tech problem, you need a tech solution.
Which brings us to an incredible grassroots effort happening right now in Chicago. Early Walker, the CEO of a nonprofit called I'm Telling Don't Shoot, created a grassroots alert system.
It is brilliantly simple, really. Parents just text the word Chicago kids to the number 21,000.
And when local intelligence picks up a planned takeover, parents get an automatic text warning them to check on their kids.
It gives parents real-time intelligence, affording them a crucial window of time to call their kids and physically remove them from the area.
The irony here is just fantastic. You have communities using a basic old-school SMS text message to defeat highly advanced viral TikTok algorithms.
But running an intelligence network like this independently comes with severe financial roadblocks. The system costs 5 cents per text.
Which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize there are 8,600 people signed up. It gets expensive so quickly.
Very quickly. That is over $400 for just one single alert blast.
Right, so local entertainers like comedian Damon Williams are actually having to raise money to fund the tech system so parents stay informed.
It is amazing community work, but beneath the humor is a stark reality. Empowering parents with real-time intelligence might be far more effective at dispersing a crowd than deploying police riot shields.
Because if kids' mom calls them and tells them to come home right now, that intercepts the problem before it ever reaches the street.
Exactly. It allows them to intervene privately and safely with their own children.
Wow, we covered a massive amount of ground today for you. We broke down how algorithms fuel these massive flash gatherings, completely bypassing local police intelligence.
Right, and we unpacked the psychological tactics police use to de-escalate panicked teens, framing commands positively.
We also navigated the intense political debate over policing strategies and explored the new legal realities, forcing parents to take control or face tens of thousands of dollars in fines.
It is a phenomenal case study in how technology outpaces policy. Whether you are a parent, a city resident, or just someone observing the culture, the rules of public spaces are changing rapidly.
They really are. Which leaves you, our listeners, with a final provocative thought to mull over today.
Yeah, it is a tough one.
If social media algorithms are specifically designed to gather like-minded people together as fast as humanly possible, will city infrastructure and local laws ever truly catch up?
Or are teen takeovers simply a permanent, unavoidable feature of the digital age?
That is the big question. Keep that in mind the next time you see a crowd forming out of nowhere. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we will catch you next time.